That's how they roll. That's the most, that WNBA is woke as shit. The NBA is woke as shit. And they had to tell her, you better change your thing or we're not going to get behind you 100%. And she did. She bowed down, and that's exactly what happened. And I'll never.
That's right. The same girl who brought this dying league out of obscurity with her blood, sweat, and talent was forced to publicly acknowledge that her success is solely due to white privilege. On the same day that she was crowned Times Athlete of the Year, Caitlin Clark, the only reason anyone even knows this league exists, was bullied into apologizing for being white. You can't make this nonsense up, Caitlin. You didn't make it to the WNBA because I know there have been many incredible black women in this league, and I think it's crucial to keep encouraging them. If this league is founded on the backs of black women, then explain why it has been struggling to survive for 25 years with empty seats and no money. Regardless of the color of your skin, you played because you worked your ass off, hours in the gym, sweat, sacrificed, and everything. The WNBA, this pitiful money-losing joke of a league, actually led her to believe it's about race rather than talent. WNBA talent is talent, resilience is resilience, but it's obvious that acknowledging the fact requires far more mental energy than these league administrators have to spare. People like Cheryl Swoops have regularly treated Caitlin Clark disrespectfully, ignored her, and talked about her. Now she brought the league's decaying corpse into the spotlight by winning her Athlete of the Year award, which she deserved, setting 6 rookie records, 4 franchise records, and a 19-dime single-game assist record. In the meantime, she plays for the Indiana Fever, a team which no one paid any attention to until she entered the WNBA. Yes, it's that league you forgot existed until Caitlin Clark made every game television. I actually have wonderful news. The WNBA is a zombie organization that loses money year after year. This year, they were expected to lose $50 million, but thanks to Caitlin Clark's tremendous achievement, they only lost $40 million. Fantastic. Let's go back to her college years. Because Caitlin made basketball fun, she didn't just play well, she made people care. That alone deserves a medal because, let's face it, the WNBA was about as relevant before her as a broken fax machine. And not only that, but Iowa VS. South Carolina drew 18.9 million viewers during March Madness, which is bigger than NBA playoff games, the second most watched women's sports event in U.S. history. The WNBA accuses the individual carrying its worthless league alone of being a product of white privilege because, well, nothing shouts privilege like dragging a 27-year-old zombie league screaming and kicking into the spotlight, although 3-time MVP A.I. Wilson asserted that Clark's race played a significant role in her popularity. Caitlin Clark doesn't have privilege, she has talent, and talent doesn't care about color. The truth that they don't want to hear is that the WNBA has been on life support for decades and is a $50 million money pit that only exists because of the NBA's financial support. Without the NBA's cash infusions, the WNBA would have gone bankrupt before E2K, but Caitlin's ascent nearly turned them into a profitable business this year. They only lost $4 million, a $10 million reduction in. The parade is called off due to failure. Until Caitlin arrived, the WNBA didn't function like a legitimate business because the crowds at most games were so small that they could have been held in a high school gym, and the janitor would have been fine sweeping up. Then Caitlin put on her sneakers, and all of a sudden, every arena, home or away, was packed with people. Tickets sold out, road games became events, and the WNBA had a pulse for the first time ever. What did they do? They cry. Regarding her detractors for being white experts and players emerged from the shadows to turn her success into some racist bullshit. When the woke brigade threw a party, Caitlin's true followers rolled their eyes into the back of their heads because she acknowledged the white privilege narrative without saying anything radical, as if she were reading from a hostage statement. We disagree with victimization when you say that because we're. When Tiger Woods dominated golf, no one called it black privilege. When Serena Williams dominated tennis, no one complained about her race. Instead, they celebrated her because greatness speaks for itself. Can you imagine us Middle Eastern? We don't believe in that stuff. Their father is as Middle Eastern as it gets. Every endorsement agreement Caitlin Clark signs and every highlight she achieves make her a generational talent. In addition to being petty, WBA's desperate attempt to justify her success by focusing on color rather than talent is pitiful. The WNBA will never be successful. Sports fans have little interest in the WNBA, which is a lesbian league, and the players who complain about Caitlin are their own worst enemies. It is a zombie organization that will never make money. It lacks mass market appeal and value, unlike Amazon and Jeff Bezos. A.A. Wilson and the others are swooped by Cheryl. Unable to refrain from making disparaging remarks rather than taking notes, try earning Caitlyn's spotlight. She is the NBA's only solution, not its problem. She is skilled at connecting with people and marketing herself, which is what celebrities do. While her colleagues stood about whining like extras in her highlight reel, Caitlin Clark transformed the WNBA into a conversation. The executive staff at the WNBA believes they did the right thing. They simply effed up, and they had half of the population's actual situation. The WNBA isn't established on the backs of black women. In fact, it's hardly built at all, and it has been stumbling along for more than 20 years entirely on NBA welfare. Now that Caitlin Clark is carrying it, they are angry with her because she is white, but that's their identity, not their problem. Facial finger pointing in politics won't bring in money. The WNBA has been pleading for money and recognition for years, and Caitlin Clark gave fans both. How do? To compensate her, they force her to apologize for her own success, but for some reason the league she is rescuing acts as though she is the issue. Let's not fool ourselves. The WNBA has been a joke for years with empty arenas, poor TV ratings, and a $40 million loss this year. A lone fun fact that's actually better than the $50 million hole they were in last year. She's incredible, from hilarious to hardly bearable. She has performed admirably, and I have watched throughout the season as she is harassed by all of the other players who are envious of her success. Meanwhile, statistics show that all of her road games sell out, making them the season's best-selling games. When she returns to town, she fills every seat because people genuinely care about her performances. Last year, if there had been a WNBA Finals game in your living room, you wouldn't have bothered to look up from your phone. However, due to the Caitlin Clark effect, the WNBA is now unable to print tickets quickly enough. For example, the Iowa vs. South Carolina college game attracted 18.9 million viewers, which is more than the 2023 NBA Finals. Let me reiterate that. For those in the back, a women's college basketball game performed better than the NBA Finals. Whether it has to do with business or something else entirely, a lot of people are asking about fatherhood. The problem is that if I write a book on the subject, the first chapter will say, read this book at your own risk. It will also say, don't look at me as a great father. We'll know if I'm a good father or not in 40 years. This is exactly what happens when Caitlin Clark plays. She turns sports into events, while the WNBA has been whining about how they should be treated with more respect for 25 years. And Caitlin Clark got it due to her exceptional performance, not her race. Oh, and let's not forget about money, since it's always about money. Because companies like Nike invest in stars who can sell, rather than throwing tens of millions at players out of sympathy, Caitlin Clark recently inked a huge contract worth $24 to $28 million. She is marketable, likable, and incredibly captivating to watch. Compare that to the WNBA, a league that has been on life support since its inception. Only because the NBA subsidizes 70% of its budget, otherwise they would have shut down 20 years ago. Meanwhile, LeBron James receives a salary of $50 million annually, and no one seems to care since he deserves every penny of it. When Caitlin Clark arrives, she attracts fans and reduces the WNBA's losses by tens of millions. Why is she accused of white privilege? Excuse me, but the veterans are sitting there complaining like children who didn't understand. The claim that someone is privileged in an athletic competition is something that would never be made about the NBA, where hundreds of black superstars receive millions of dollars in compensation. In addition, let's not forget that the NBA funds the entire WNBA. Let's face it, the WNBA has long been more about social justice teachings than basketball, with Black Lives Matter logos and endless complaints about endorsements. For athletes who would sooner whine than play, sports are meant to be about entertainment and talent competition, not identity politics, but the WNBA can't help but stumble over its own insecurities, using the one player who can save them as a scapegoat by some racist who is the only reason we want to watch. Caitlin Clark brings millions of new fans with her, and all of a sudden the league has a problem with her being white. The reason Caitlin is so popular is because she is white, and we can't stand watching black people, but we will watch white people, which is ridiculous. Let's not pretend that Caitlin's white privilege apology was sincere executives who don't know their audience forced it on her. Fans don't watch woke lectures, they watch Caitlin Clark break records, drop dimes, and drain threes. She is doing exactly what a superstar is supposed to do. Simone Biles is completely ridiculous, and instead of applauding her, the league turned her success into a race issue. She fell for the DI-LGBT thing instead of May, even though she deserved to be where she is because she was a good player. However, I have one suggestion for you. Caitlin here is the ugly truth. The WNBA is envious of Caitlin Clark, and the veterans are disparaging her because they can't accept that she is more gifted, marketable, and adored than they have ever been. rather than taking lessons from her. They're busy criticizing her newsflash, but Caitlyn didn't beg for this spotlight, she earned it, and it's not her fault that no one was interested in the WNBA before she came. The only reason this league hasn't completely collapsed yet is because of Caitlin Clark, who is the hero here and the reason arenas are packed. The WNBA should be praising her and not criticizing her for being white. Without Caitlin Clark, this league would not exist. Returns to the vacant seats, not making any news and losing much more money.